we fear God, the wrath of God. So anyways, I fall into hell, and as I'm in hell, all of a sudden, I'm out of hell. I begin to cry out to God, and I'm out of hell, and I'm standing on the edge of this cliff, and it's thousands of feet down. I see a boiling lake of fire, brimstone. Guys are shooting up. I see little black bodies bobbing around. I can hear the screaming and the wailing. And I look over, and this was all supernatural, by the way. It was more real to me than the physical flesh. I look over, and I seen a river, a humongous river flowing, multicolored river. And so I remember the Spirit of God was on me so powerful, I started running for that river. And as I'm running for the river, it was falling into the lake of fire. And as I got closer and closer, all of a sudden, I began to see it was humanity. I didn't know how many people were dying back then, but it's 200,000 people a day now, they say. Just like a river, like them little like mice falling over the cliff in Alaska or up in the Antarctic. So I saw these people falling over. And so I'm running towards them now with a desire in my heart to help them, to stop them, because it's just a massive river of people falling into hell. And as I get to them, it seemed like they were all happy, they were all excited, they were all talking, they were all in their own little groups. But as they began to get about 10 to 15 feet away from the edge of the cliff, you could see horror would fill their faces, and they begin to scream and cry and wail. But it was too late, because the people behind them were shoving them forward, and as they got to the cliff, I saw them falling. And as they were falling, they were scrambling, men and women, teenagers, girls and boys. And they would flip in the air. I saw them, I see it today. And their fingers would be grabbing the sides of the cliff. And it was streaked with blood because they couldn't stop their fall. And as they would fall and plummet, they would hit that boiling ocean of lava, and they would burst into flames, and then they'd begin to be taken away with the currents of hell. Man, my heart was going to die. My heart was so filled with love for these people who didn't know it. They didn't know it. And I began to try to fight my way into the crowd, to talk to them, to witness to them. And I'm trying to share with them about the love of Christ. And you need to repent. You need to come out of this flow of, because I was trying to pull them out of that flow of humanity, to get them out. And then I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I had to get some help. And so I looked off into the distance, and I saw little clusters of people in white clothing, and they were shimmering. And so I ran. There was big clusters, small clusters, large clusters, and I ran, and I got to the first set of clusters, and I saw they all had their backs to the river. They were all turned inward, and they all had their hands lifted up, and some were laughing, some were crying, some were filled with joy. And I couldn't get into that cluster. They were just so close knit, I couldn't get in. And so I ran into another cluster, and finally I found a cluster, and I got my way into it. And I said, yo, hey, tears rolling down my face. I said, listen, look it. And I pointed to the masses in the river. And I said, they're going to hell. I said, they're lost. I said, they're damned. I said, please help me. We got to go. Come on. If we can get everybody just out there, maybe we can save some of them. Come on. And they looked at me like I lost my mind. And I remember to this day, one of the sisters, one of the brothers spoke up and said, that's not my calling. That's not my burden. Well, that's not our ministry. And I fell in the midst of this cluster of people. I fell on my face, weeping and wailing and crying. And when I lifted my head up, I was back in my barracks. And Willie Wine, the black brother, was there with me. And that's when I went out. And I was going, they thought I was a nut on that base. I was walking up and down the hallways of the barracks, wailing, crying out, come to Jesus, get saved, get right. Repent. And that's when I got arrested. I went into an old movie theater, and I preached my heart out, and they came down and arrested me, and I preached my heart out down there. But you know what happens, the cares of life, the deceitfulness of riches, and the lust of other things come in, and all of a sudden, before you know it, we lose that love. It's a divine love. It's a divine love. What do you think the old revivalists, the old revivalists used to spend, you know what? The altars of the churches used to be filled with wailing, weeping, crying Christians. The altars were soaking wet. Why? Because their hearts were broken over humanity. And now we become cold and dead and dry. And we're more excited about what God is doing in us than we are about souls being saved. Now, I'm not attacking you. Understand me. I'm guilty. Stood in this pulpit talking about hell without a tear in my eye. I don't think we ought to even have the right to talk about hell without a tear in our eye. I think that what Pastor Mike ought to do is he ought to get on his face and say, God, fill me with your love or I die. It says, unless I in travail shall never bring forth children. God said, why